Superintendent of Public Instruction. We're going to call the State Board of Education meeting for December 2nd to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Bertram?
Here.
Dr. Ernest?
Present.
Dr. Freitas?
Here.
Mr. Hendry? Ms. Kwiatkowski?
Here.
Mr. Melton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Watts?
Here.
Mrs. Wicker?
Here.
Dr. Yeager? Superintendent Ritz?
Here. If you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is the approval of the agenda. With everybody's permission. Whoa, now we're on. I would like to move letter C under discussion up to the very first item of discussion so that we can accommodate schedules of those who are speaking.
It's a new sound system.
Yeah, that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm talking into it correctly. Any other changes to the agenda? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Sorry, Eddie, I'll try and wait. Agenda approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes. We have two approval of minutes. One is October 28th, our special meeting, and November 4th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Any changes or discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. The next item is the statement of the chair. Just want to give a quick update on a few items. Number one is the reauthorization of ESEA at the federal level. It's out of committee and getting ready to actually be voted up or down in the House and the Senate. I'm actually going to be in D.C. Over the next couple of days, and we'll be working to make sure that our representatives vote for the reauthorization of ESEA. So it's getting closer and closer to being reauthorized. Dual credit extension. The Lieutenant Governor and I went and actually attended a board meeting of the Higher Learning Commission to express our concerns for Indiana. And as a result of that meeting, actually, states have received permission to go up to a 5-year extension in order to implement the guidelines. The Dual Credit Advisory Committee actually met recently, and Vince, I know you're on that committee, and we are moving ahead with a two-pronged approach, still trying to get clarification and work with the Higher Learning Commission to perhaps give more flexibility, and then we're also working on long-term solutions if we have to implement the guidelines. Vince, did you want to say anything further to that?
No, I was just pleased that, one, that we have the possibility of applying for a 5-year extension. I think that will certainly help us and also give us an opportunity to evaluate and research our students' performance in the current system. And I think that will be very effective in providing evidence as we move into that 5-year period.
One of the areas in which we're seeking flexibility is tested experience, that the teachers who have been teaching dual credit be able to count that experience towards their work. So we'll continue to address the issue.
Can I add something to that?
You may.
And again, thank you for your efforts on the behalf of the dual credit folks. I'm getting a lot of feedback that is really questioning the value of the changes that we see. Just for clarification, we're applying for a 5-year extension, which would take us from implementation date of 2017 to 2022.
Correct.
Okay. In my opinion, that's not good enough. I mean, I just don't see the need and the value, and I appreciate the fact you're looking for data. I would ask that if it's possible to get data from the universities, let's say that a student coming in as a second semester sophomore taking second level of math is floundering, and the student that started out in university, took first year in university math in the same class, am I making myself clear? Is there a difference in the success or failure of those students? I think it's important that, and that's directly relevant to how we're doing at the high school level. And if we can get that kind of information and provide that to HLC, then I think that would be very important information, because I don't think we're floundering. As a matter of fact, I think we're doing quite well, and we're doing exactly what the legislature wanted us to do. So I'd appreciate if we could think about that sort of data as well. Thank you.
The committee has a fairly long list of data that we are going to be collecting.
Is that on?
And yeah, so I'm sure we're going to be looking at comparison data.
Okay, thank you.
Also, wanted to make sure that I was giving recognition to the principals of the year. I attended their banquet just not too long ago, and Maura Clark was the elementary principal of the year from Maplewood Elementary in Wayne Township, and James Velez from Dole Creek Middle School in Southern Hancock Community Schools was the middle school principal of the year, and Steve Hope from Penn High School in Penn Harrison Madison School Corporation was the high school principal of the year. In addition, I had a very fun time working with the Milken Foundation to give the Milken Award to Melody Coryell, who is an IB English teacher at Shortridge. That was quite fun. When someone receives a $25,000 check, there's nothing but fun in the room. So anyhow, congratulations to her. Other board member comments and reports? Sarah?
I'd just like to begin by expressing my appreciation to Ashley Cowger for her service to the board. For those of you who don't know, this is Ashley's last week serving as our chief of staff. And due to the timing, we were unable to get anything prepared for today, but I'm hoping that we can force you to come back next month so that we can properly thank you for your service with a resolution of appreciation for your service to the students and the schools within Indiana. So best of luck to you in your new position. I can't wait to hear the wonderful things that you are accomplishing there, but sincerely appreciate your guidance and efforts in our work here as a board. Additionally, I remain concerned about parent access to the ISTEP information. Obviously, it's a bit of a moot point for this year's data, but I hope that especially as we are moving forward next year and working with Pearson, it was brought to our attention that there is no bilingual format for the information that was provided to parents in order to potentially ask for a rescore of their data. So while they received their initial invitation in Spanish also, the information that they were able to access with their actual score was only provided in English. When it's a parent rescore option, that obviously is a concern to us, that we're giving them the full opportunity to do that. So I hope that we are taking that into consideration as we move forward with the upcoming experience with Pearson, and I hope that's something that we as a board at least can state is something that we're not willing to let go of.
Any other comments? Carrie?
Last night I spent a lot of time looking at the preliminary A to F data, and I understand it's preliminary, and I won't, break any confidences here. But I spent a lot of time looking at it, and we have a new, more rigorous test. We have more rigorous standards, and the iStep is not the end-all be-all in my classroom. I have lots of assessments, from my own classroom assessments to just anecdotal, how are they doing, when I'm watching them and their reactions in class. But it is a tool that we have, and it's my responsibility to use it, and my students deserve that from me for the amount of time we spend on taking it and stuff. And so I was pleased by some of the results that I was seeing in terms of, I really felt as if the sky was falling. And so I want us to keep in mind, and for those schools who do know their scores, to feel good about that, and for us to, as those scores do come out, to really applaud those schools who did well, and the kids deserve, those teachers who've worked so hard on these new tests and new standards deserve to feel good. Whatever you feel about the test itself, to have done well on something, we should applaud that. And so, sometimes I read, the scores were set arbitrarily or the questions weren't fair. And I think of the hundreds of teachers who put time into setting the cut scores, and the hundreds of teachers who helped with the questions and the sensitivity and bias committees. And I think, there were a lot of teachers who spent a lot of time working to make it as best as they could, given, this rocky road we've had in this evolution of education recently. And so, I don't want those people who volunteered all their time to feel as if their time was in any way wasted. I want us to applaud them for their work. I know we've had this, kind of rocky road we've gone down, but our national data for our kids in Indiana has looked good as we compare ourselves to others. And, the accountability argument is going to happen, and, the governor and the legislature have talked about some, that's up to the legislature to do some decision-making coming up on that. But in the meantime, I don't want us to take away the joy and excitement for those schools who did well by, just throwing everything away. There's still something to be learned if you didn't do well, and our kids deserve for us to look at the data, whatever it is, and to do better for them because they deserve it. And so, regardless of how you feel about it, it's there and it's our job to use it. And so kudos to those who did well, and I want them to celebrate because it was a lot of effort.
Thank you, Carrie. Leanne?
So I have a comment similar to Sarah's regarding the parent access to the ISTEP rescores. This year, it was taken out of the hands of principals to be able to have access and to assist parents with that. And we have parents that sometimes have had difficulty with technology, or they may not have been as savvy, and they would call the school principal, and they would be in the PDF and weren't able to access a rescore, and they were having a lot of issues. And so I just think that we have such a diverse group of parents with different experiences that if we could still give principals opportunities to be able to work, see the information and work hand in hand with those parents, to me, that just would be parents rely on principals in schools. They trust them. And so if we could still make sure our schools had that access, I just think that would be helpful to our parents.
So if you don't mind, we can address that your very comment under discussion under the assessment and accountability? Okay, that would be great. Other comments? Steve?
Just one additional, we recently established a task force for diplomas, and I
We did.
know State Board has identified their members. And I appreciate the fact DOE just sent out an email, check your calendars for, I think, last 3 Wednesdays in January and February. Terrific, thank you. Where are we with the DOE appointments? And there was some sort of a workforce or some work committees you were going to come.
So,
are we still on those
the
timelines?
task force is appointed, and the department will do whatever work we feel needs to be done to bring to the task force. So if we need to gather some math teachers together to talk about the Math 10 course, we'll get that done.
And I appreciate that. Have those assignments been shared with State Board staff?
We weren't going to formalize it in that kind of way. I thought it was your voice to not formalize it in that manner. But we are certainly going to go about doing our work with our small committees that we always do
I
at the
don't mean
department.
the work committees, the task force members.
Yes,
That-
yes,
that's been
those are
shared
those
with
are
the State Board?
finished. Those
Okay.
are finished.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. We are now ready for general comment. Ernie Simpson from Clay Community Schools. Welcome.
Thank you, Superintendent. We were supposed to be represented today by our superintendent, Mr. Jeff Fritz, but he is in Florida at the Blue Ribbon Conference, giving a presentation for the work he did at Jackson Township. I hope to represent Clay Community Schools politely and professionally, but not without criticism. It isn't directed at one person or any political position. Excuse me, this is hard to get used to. But I do want to talk a little bit about ISTEP, our experiences with ISTEP, and some of the problems that we experience. You can begin with the standards. They were released for teacher review in April of 14, finishing touches late spring. We begin in the classroom with those standards in August. Our students are assessed in February. In effect, those teachers had 6 months to work with those standards. That is not a very long time frame to work with them. The test itself, multiple technology issues were reported during the test. The test was changed within 1 month of administering the test. We had children in Clay Community Schools that took Form 1 and took Form 2. They're not taking the same assessment as their peers. I would question the rigor. I would definitely question the rigor. We had teachers dropping 20, 30, 40, and in some cases, one isolated case went from 97% to 44%. That's a drastic drop. I find it incredibly difficult to believe that our teachers and our students decreased that much in 1 year. Next, I would quickly like to talk about students with IEPs. With no provision for IMAS, we have the students with IEPs taking the same assessment as other students. We have students that are at grade level, some that are on the bubble, that are clearly struggling to pass this assessment, yet we expect students with cognitive impairments and learning disabilities to pass the exact same assessment? Folks, I don't think that's realistic. North Clay Middle School is probably the most drastic example in Clay Community Schools. We currently stand at 0% pass rate in English. 0%. We've been told the DOE is attempting to find our scores, but only the critical response section was scored. Therefore, 100% of our students failed English language arts. Science and math, 100% had undetermined scores. So with the release of the embargoed school accountability letter grades, you can probably imagine what North Clay Middle School received last evening. Guys, I'm going to close with this. I want to be brief. As a former coach, teacher, building level administrator, and now central office administrator, I think it's my chief and primary responsibility to put people in a position to be successful. Whether that be my teachers, my students, young men that played for me, put people in a position to be successful. With the assessment as it stands now, I question whether we're putting our teachers, our administrators, our children, our schools in a position to be successful. Madam Superintendent, Board, I do thank you for your attention.
Thank you. John O'Neill.
Thank you, Superintendent, members of the board. I actually was going to comment during this specific agenda item, but I can go ahead.
Oh, wait just a second. Oh, I will wait. You're fine. It's up to you, actually. Okay. You're welcome. My apology. Next, we have best practices. Ben Carson from Arsenal Technical High School, Coding and Partnerships.
today. This morning, we're going to introduce you to the Indianapolis Public Schools Career Technology Center and share some information about 3 of our new partnerships in the fields of computer science, construction technology, and manufacturing. At the Career Technology Center, we use 3 different data points to determine the appropriate expansion of career pathways. The first is labor supply and labor demand. We determine what the need is in the local economy, the state economy, and on a national scale. The second is student interest. We determine where student interests lie. If students don't see the value and aren't excited about the available career options, then they won't enroll in our courses. And the third are industry partnerships. We actively seek out industry partners that are committed to working alongside our teachers, students, and administration to support the career pathways in the form of capital improvements, mentoring, and work-based learning opportunities. Some of the questions we ask our industry partners before committing to our partnerships is, do they want to hire our students? Are these partners a good fit for our students? And what can we give back to our partners? We have 15 career pathways at the Career Technology Center, ranging from cosmetology and civil engineering to automotive service and advanced manufacturing. These careers provide students with the necessary skills and confidence to pursue high-demand, competitive wage careers upon graduation from IPS. Whether that means they take additional post-secondary training or apprenticeship, they pursue a 4-year degree, or employment upon graduation. I'm going to highlight 3 pathways: computer science, construction management, and advanced manufacturing. All 3 career pathways were either added or expanded over the past year, and each pathway is succeeding because of the outstanding support and strong relationships built with our industry and post-secondary partners. These relationships range from providing summer internships, building computer labs, providing teacher training, course curriculum, supplying adjunct professors, and even building brand new labs to allow our students to take a more in-depth look at careers in these fields. I'm going to start out with computer science. Early last year, we were approached by 2 organizations about the potential of launching a new computer science pathway in IPS. That was IUPUI and NextTech. We were all in, and our 3 indicators, labor supply and demand, student interest, and industry partnerships, were signaling that this was the right move to make. We added computer science at 4 IPS high schools, including the Career Technology Center. One of our fantastic partners in computer science is the IUPUI School of Informatics and Computing. Graduate students and professors from IUPUI work with a cohort of 30 of our students each year, teaching our students human-computer interaction, web design, smart applications, coding for drones, and computer programming, just to name a few of the topics. You can imagine that students are very excited about these topics. Our students are excited about this partnership and have already had the opportunity to tour the School of Informatics and Computing. During senior year in the pathway, we plan to work with IUPUI to offer these cohorts of students internship opportunities in computer science. Another partnership that really influenced our work is NextTech. NextTech helped to provide training for all of our computer science teachers and new computers for 2 of our computer science programs at 2 of our high schools. We continue to cultivate this partnership with NextTech and are excited to showcase our computer science students during Computer Science Education Week, which begins next week. Students from our program will be leading an hour of code with state dignitaries. Students from our program will be leading an hour of code with state dignitaries at the State House on Monday morning. Improving the options provided at the Career Technology Center required our team to allow local industry partners to help re-envision the learning environment. Through our partnership with Duke Realty, we re-envisioned our old carpentry room, and with Duke Realty support, turned it into a space where students learn about construction management from employees at Duke Realty. Students in welding, HVAC, and civil engineering spend 2 hours per week working alongside the Duke Realty team as they learn the basics of construction management. They are following along with Duke through a new Goodwill building project from start to finish. With me today is Devin Nance, a senior in our civil engineering class and a participant in our construction management course. Also with me today is Chris Ferguson, staffing manager from Duke Realty. Devin and Chris are going to share a bit about their experience.
Good morning. As Mr. Carter said, my name is Devin Nance, and I am a senior at Arsenal Technical High School. This year, we have collaborated with Duke Realty to take a deeper look at behind the construction of the Google project located in Greenwood, Indiana. Over the past 4 months, we have learned about slopes and surveying, price estimating, civil engineering, and how to deal with stormwater, pre-construction, quantity takeoffs, bidding, and proposal. We have also visited Google job sites 3 different times this year to get a first-hand look at what goes on out in the construction field during hours. Through this course with Duke Realty, I've learned that every design isn't perfect. There is a lot of problem solving involved, and you have to put a strong thought process into developing your structures. Throughout our collaboration with Duke Realty, my favorite activity was using Legos to build the Lincoln Memorial while we were learning about pre-construction. This is definitely a career field that I would like to pursue, and the construction management course has helped me discover that. The staff from Duke are really friendly, and I consider them as role models. One of those staff members is here with us today. I would like to introduce Mr. Chris Ferguson to share more from Duke Realty's perspective.
Thank you, Devin. I don't think I can say that much better than Devin did. Stole some of my thunder. Good morning, and on behalf of Duke Realty, I thank you all for having the opportunity to discuss this relationship that we've had starting this semester with Arsenal Tech's IPS and the Career Technology Center. When this opportunity, we were approached on this opportunity, Duke Realty is always looking for the opportunity, quite frankly, to give back to the community and get involved. But when that opportunity involves young minds and youth, and to engage them in perhaps career paths that they would not be privy to or have knowledge of unless something like this existed, well, excited us even more. So it was somewhat of a firestorm getting this all together, but with Mr. Carter's staff, with many of the employees at Duke Realty, we were able to bring this on-site work lab to life rather quickly. So we are in our first semester of the on-site work lab. Our folks, about 5 to 7 of our best and brightest engineers at Duke Realty on the construction team, meet with students every Thursday. As Devin mentioned, part of it is bringing real-life work concepts to the students, engaging them in projects that are related to what our construction professionals do every day. Also, which is nice and was somewhat coincidental, we had a new project with this Goodwill Distribution Center and retail outlet that on the onset of this semester, they've really been able to follow as part of their curriculum this year from groundbreaking and apply those concepts as they go through site development, design, planning, pre-construction. And to say the least, our individuals at Duke have been just very engaged. They're very excited to take part of this, and we have just thoroughly enjoyed this partnership. And we certainly look forward to the next semester and the 2016 and 2017 school year and having much more success. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So thank you, Chris and Devin. Local industry partners helped to revision another space at Career Technology this year in order to support new technology in manufacturing. 3D Parts Manufacturing approached our team with an idea to expose students to making. We have a maker space in our Career Center that encourages student creativity and invention. Teachers reserve the maker space much like they would a computer lab. The makerspace includes 10 3D printers, a laser cutter, embroidery machines, and many other tools and materials to help supplement instruction and bring learning to life. The makerspace allows students to gain confidence in solving everyday problems. Students learn to solve problems using creative solutions and can explain their logic behind the solutions that they create. The makerspace is about pulling information out of students rather than pushing it down. With me today is Jason Brewster, a senior at Arsenal Technical High School. Jason is currently interning with 3D Parts Manufacturing and is our resident expert on the makerspace. I'm going to have him share briefly about his experience.
By working with 3D Parts Manufacturing and the first Makerspace team, I've learned how to build and tear down 3D printers. I've learned how to use voltmeters and soldering irons, among other tools that before I would not know how to use. But now using them at school, at work, and at home. I can look around my house and solve problems. I created phone docks, door stops, and hangers. Devices to make my life easier and others. 3D printing is a type of additive printing, which means later, after item is completed. Unlike subtractive printing, which is like taking a block and chipping away at it. There are 3 different types of plastic that we use when 3D printing. ABS, ASA, and PLA. ASA plastic is the same type of plastic that Legos are made from, and it is sturdy. ABS plastic is a smoother plastic that creates higher quality prints, while PLA is organic plastic that is safe to drink from. Something you can make cups or bowls with. While working in the makerspace, I've been able to collaborate with all sorts of people. It has been a real confidence booster. I'm now confident with my abilities because I've been able to create, beautifully design something that will solve problems, and seeing it become a reality is an amazing feeling. I'm only able to experience this because of the makerspace at Arsenal Section of High School.
Thank you, Jason.
Is there, I mean, can we do nothing about this?
We're taking a break and to fix it. They're going to switch
Okay.
these out.
Sorry about that. I mean, this is
No, it's okay.
great presentation.
But to wrap up, we have 3 amazing partnerships, and many more that we didn't highlight today in computer science, advanced manufacturing, and we're just really excited about the work that's happening at the IPS Career Technology Center. I can't find another place that has a makerspace with 10 3D printers that allow students to use on a daily basis during instruction to supplement instruction in algebra, from algebra to engineering. Teachers utilize it to bring the learning to life in the class, and so we feel it to be extremely valuable. To have Duke really work alongside of our students during the day to help them understand what that career pathway is like, to help them network with those students, is extremely valuable to that course as well. And in terms of computer science, it's such a high demand right now for that career field. We are just so thrilled to be partnered with IUPUI and NextTech. And we actually have professors coming into our course to work with the students on a daily basis from IUPUI School of Informatics and Computing. And so it's an outstanding opportunity, and I just feel blessed to be able to be a part of it. We have a great team of students, a great team of community partners coming to join us at the IPS Career Technology Center. And I just want to thank you for allowing our team to celebrate the exciting work happening at the Indianapolis Public Schools Career Technology Center. We encourage everyone to come out and see the progress we've made on our way to making CTC, which is what we call it, an elite career center and a leading innovator for CTE, career and technical education, in urban education. So we thank you again for your time.
And I want to make a few comments if you don't mind. First of all, I've been to Arsenal Tech a couple of times, and you have an outstanding career technical center. The Hour of Code, that is something that's kind of spreading throughout the schools in the state of Indiana, so I applaud you for participating in Hour of Code, which is a nationwide kind of thing. Actually, I'm not sure it's not larger than the nation, but I've seen a lot of great kids get very interested in computer science just because the school participated in an Hour of Code, getting kids into that field. So that's pretty exciting. I want to say both of my sons are in construction management. It's a great field to be involved in. They followed my father, not my father, actually, it is my father. My father, my grandfather, and my husband are all in the field of construction and property management. So that's a fun thing. And the internships and the partnerships that you have going on, I applaud. And companies are more and more wanting to reach out to the schools. We have a mutual benefit to making sure that we have great employees through the education pathway of whatever the students choose. And I heard the young man mention confidence. So when you bring relevance to what you're learning in high school, you build that definite confidence that you know you can go forward and go do what you want to do. So thank you so much for coming and participating today. Pathways for all kids in high school is very important to me personally as we move forward in the state of Indiana. So thank you very much for attending and giving a presentation today. Leanne?
So I was fortunate to work a year with Ben Carter in Warren. He developed our ELO program where he had students do research, reflection, create a product, and have a presentation at the end. And I saw the wonderful partnerships you brought to us. And so I'm not the least bit surprised to see that you are bringing great partnerships to IPS. And, you know, you've always held such high standards for yourself and for others, and you're just the type of leader that we need in all of our schools. So I just commend all the work that you're doing, Ben.
I would also add another best practice that is spreading throughout the state of Indiana is the maker spaces, not only at the secondary level, but at the elementary level. And there, I've attended several schools where they're having Genius Hour once or twice a week, and they use the maker spaces, and you should just see the creations that are going on within those spaces, and getting more and more equipment and fusing technology into that, you know, just makes them come alive. So thanks for being on the cutting edge of things.
It's a couple points too. First, thank you for your partnership with the schools. I think it's, having those kind of relationships are very important. And, and I also applaud Scott Dorsey and establishing Next Tech and really giving back to the community in a significant way, and particularly around computer science. So I think that's going to be very helpful. A couple questions. When I think of relevancy, essentially when you put up on that first graph, you're talking about making learning relevant. Not only the experience that students are having on a daily basis and the activities they're doing, but also what it means in the job market. And that there's a direct connection and just developing skills that will lead to great career opportunities. So in the maker space, and as the superintendent pointed out, obviously it's a growing interest across the country. What hours is the makerspace available to students outside of the school day? Is that an open lab?
Yeah, it is essentially an open lab. There are times when there are camps being run in the lab space, but we have it available for the students to use as long as there's adult supervision. So they can't necessarily go in there like it would be like a media center yet. We're not to that stage, just for the safety purposes. But they can use it, and we actually have a maker club. And during the Halloween week, they all came in. We had tons of students coming in to perfect their Halloween costumes, like building on LED lights and different things. And so there's fabric and design on that aspect side too.
I'd point out there's one of the best maker spaces I have seen across the country is the University of Missouri of Science and Technology. And what was so fascinating about what they're doing in their design lab, they call it, is they've established essentially a 24/7 access for students. And obviously they're college students, but they really focused on obviously safety and security, but through passes and key cards. It's fabulous what they're doing. I'd recommend at least taking a look at something like that. One other question regarding the makerspace. Obviously, students are making things, and they come up with great inventions. What are you doing around intellectual property and helping students, one, establish, if they can protect that property, and also then from the entrepreneurial mindset, you're making things, now what? What do you do with something you make? And that's a skill in itself. So are you doing anything around those areas?
Yeah, well, our partnership with 3D Parts Manufacturing, they're handling a lot of that intellectual property side of things, and they're working really close hand in hand with the students on kind of sharing the insides and outs of how that works. We don't have a specific program established to align to the makerspace to support that, but I definitely, and there's been a lot of people throwing ideas out there about an entrepreneurial pathway that's kind of aligned to the makerspace, where students can kind of learn the business side of things and how to take those ideas and bring them into something more marketable.
Yeah, because those incubators are really important. And I think, and particularly coming from a high school perspective. So one policy question for you, and if you have the answer, that's great. If a student invents something in the makerspace, who owns it?
It's a great question. I think in my mind, that the student would own the property there.
I completely agree. I think that's a good policy.
Yeah.
It belongs to the student, and that's why I think it's so important for them to protect their property. It's too easy to get away if they make something and don't know how to do that, and getting that guidance and support, I think, is very important. So, great job. Thank you. Thanks for your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to take a quick recess so that they can work on our sound system.
There's something wrong with this house.
Good.
Yes. Yes, yes. Killed a couple. I love it. It's fine. It's my nirvana. I think I've shot like twice in the last 2 years. Since my kids started having to drive us. Phone doesn't ring for it.
A lot of kids, that's, a lot of
Oh, absolutely. So when we get off the
what's this Friday, the 18th or
We're the
19th?
only people go on that next week.
You must be,
We're
or
the
you
22nd. Go Monday and Tuesday.
We get 2 full weeks. Now, next year we don't. Next year we get like 6 school days off or something because of the way it falls. It's like on a Monday. So we
Here, I need to just take this and then you can give it back to. I need to keep it on. Yes.
copy of the certification that was provided to Dr. Farabee, in which Dr. Farabee indicated that the corporation concurs with the recommendations of the department. Because IPS agrees with the department's withholding recommendations, the adjudication is limited to a determination on the documents filed with the board. The board's decision will be determined by an affirmative vote of at least 6 members. Is there any discussion on this proceeding? Hearing none, I'd like to invite a motion to adopt the agreed recommendation to withhold the following in-state tuition funds for the operating of the turnaround academies in IPS.
So moved.
I think I have to read the amounts
Oh, I'm
quickly just
sorry.
for the file. You're fine. We're getting there.
I was kind of excited there.
$1,348,779.50 for the operation of Emmett Middle School, $2,065,274.15 for the operation of Thomas Carr Howe High School, and $2,670,695.09 for the operation of Emmerich Manual High School.
So
Go
moved.
for it. Roll call, please.
Dr. Bertram?
Yes.
Dr. Ernest?
Yes.
Dr. Freitas?
Yes.
Ms. Pikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Melton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Watts?
Yes.
Mrs. Wicker?
Yes.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Superintendent Ritz? Oh,
Thank you very much, Melissa. Now we'll go down to discussion on the turnaround overview. First is the Turnaround Academies Arlington update with Dr. Farabee.
Good morning, Superintendent Ritz, members of the board. Thank you for accommodating our schedule and allowing us to present early on the agenda. Also want to thank you for highlighting the work at Arsenal Technical High School along with the leadership of Ben Carter. We're really pleased with the direction, our partnership, and the opportunities that we're offering our students through our Career and Technical Center. Also, thank you so much, Superintendent, for recognizing our Milken Award winner at Shortridge High School. Today, we will provide an update on Arlington High School. Before we do that, again, I want to just reiterate how grateful we are to have the opportunity to own the transformation at Arlington High School. And that is something that we do not take lightly. And it is our responsibility to provide regular updates under the supervision of the state board on progress, and we will do that today. We'll also have an opportunity to hear from a number of individuals that are part of the team, and this is a team effort. So I'm pleased to report we have Mr. Law, who is the principal at Arlington High School. We also have the president of the Alumni Association, Mr. Timothy Bass. He's here today. The Alumni Association has been very supportive, and part of this transition has allowed us to breathe new life in alumni engagement. We also have representation from Mass Insight as well, which are also partner with us in this transformation effort. And then we also have the Academic Improvement Officer, Mr. Pratt, who leads our work with our transformation zone and also supports Arlington High School as well. So with that, I will reiterate again our appreciation. With that appreciation, we've made tremendous investment into Arlington to ensure that the transition is as successful as possible. We'll begin the presentation by going back through what we described the transition will look like last spring, and then we'll also talk a little bit about some of those investments that we've made throughout the transition, and then where we are today in terms of the transition. Again, you see in the presentation, we'll highlight some of our tasks. Again, a lot of this information was presented back in the spring in terms of preparing for the opening of school, and then we'll talk about the current state and the transition as it is now. Remind you that we started the transition last spring with a needs assessment to identify opportunities for improvement, strengths to build upon to ensure that, again, we had a successful opening of school and a successful transition. Remind you that we, again, started last spring with making those investments. So we took over the maintenance of the building last school year, and then we've taken on the maintenance throughout the summer, and now we're operating the school. And you can see some of the investments that we made to ensure that the learning environment is appropriate for students. We've updated the Wi-Fi with technology. There's been some roof replacement work, and you can see the tremendous investment of above $6 million that we've already put into the facility alone to ensure that it's an optimal learning environment for our students. We also have taken other steps to ensure that the building and facilities are up to speed, so we ensure that there were copying opportunities for staff and students, printing, security. We want to make sure, again, the learning environment was optimal for staff and students. We also presented in the spring that we were going to host community meetings to re-engage the community with the opening of Arlington, conduct surveys, reach out to families to gather their input on what they would like to see in the transition, and we followed through on those transition activities as well. This was the timeline that we had back to our spring presentation, which included gathering transcripts on students, gathering all the information that we needed in terms to prepare for the school year. You'll see later in the presentation, the current state, the special education work was paramount because we have a significant special education population at the school right now. We did a lot of work around human capital as well to ensure that we had staff the school appropriately, and you can see our timeline that we presented back in the spring to ensure that onboarding was in place and staff was in place for opening of school. We also shared at the time how we were going to be held accountable, and we provided our performance targets, which are based on the performance targets that we have for all of our schools. And again, this is around reducing our proficiency in Arlington, increasing scholarship dollars, and also expanding advanced placement, participation, and performance. So I'll turn it over to Dr. LeGrand at this time, who will talk more about the current state, and then we'll have an opportunity to entertain questions or comments that you might have. Dr. LeGrand is our Deputy Superintendent for Academics. Also, we'll highlight, I noticed on the agenda that you'll have a conversation around the Turnaround Academy, specifically with Charter Schools USA. I'm pleased to report that that is a strong partnership for us, particularly in our innovation school that we have at the elementary grades at Emma Dowling Elementary, which then supports the students in their transition to Emma Dowling Middle School, and then through the K-12 feeder pattern with Charter Schools USA and the Turnaround Academies that they currently operate. So with that, again, I'll turn it over to Dr. LeGrand.
Good morning. So for our current state, I want to share a little bit about our enrollment. Currently, Arlington has approximately 600 students. You see the demographics of the students on the left-hand side, with 89% of the students being African American, about 1% Hispanic Latino students, and 10% Caucasian. As the superintendent mentioned, a fourth of the students there are special ed students, and 75% of them being general ed, approximately 76. We want to start this presentation, and it'll be a great time for Mr. Law to also answer questions when we get to that part, about the successes. We knew bringing Arlington back into our family, there would be highs and lows whenever you merge groups, and so we want to highlight the successes. In July and August, as the superintendent mentioned, we planned and held 4 major community events. The community, the Alumni Association, and other members of the community were very excited about Arlington coming back to IPS. So there were community events where we announced the fact that Arlington is a part of IPS. We wanted to welcome them in, answer the questions, have them to meet the new principal, and so those events were held and very well received. In September, we focused on parent and family engagement. School had settled in. We were there for a month, so the principal, Stan Law, had parent-principal talks. Because, of course, in a new school, coming back to a district, you want to first meet the principal. You want to hear about his vision for the school. You want to talk to them about the needs of your child. And so he held principal talks with family members to get to know them, and they can get to know him. There were also just casual events with families, so they can just have conversations. So not formal presentations about the mission and vision, but there were also just casual conversations and talks with the communities. There were simple things from ice cream socials to specific parent event meetings. One thing that was really big, and it remains a focus for us, is having conversations about roadmaps to success. You'll see in October and November, those occurred for students, but also parents were invited. So if you come into a high school, in the middle school, because we're 7 through 12, what is the roadmap to success? What can you expect in Arlington High School as far as success, and how will we help prepare your students when they exit the school as a senior, after their senior year? One thing that's very core to our belief in IPS is that we want all seniors to graduate and fall into 3 main areas, and so we wanted to share that with our parents. We want our students to graduate from IPS either enrolled in a 2- or 4-year school with scholarships being provided. We want them enlisted in the military if that's their choice. We have a strong partnership with all the armed forces. Or we want you employed. We don't want you employed at just any job. We want you employed to make a livable wage, which I believe is about $10 an hour if you're a single person, maybe about $20 in Indianapolis if you have 1 child. But we want our students to be enrolled, enlisted, or employed, making a livable wage. So that's important for us to have those meetings with parents so they know the path through high school, but also the expectation after high school in our vision. And so that has been shared in parent meetings by Mr. Law overall, and specifically with seniors. We know seniors are very special to us. In October and November, there was an academic instruction camp, and that occurred during fall break. So you got a break from the traditional way of doing school, but there was an academic instruction camp for our students to give them an extra boost. Also a chance for them to bond as a new community. We discussed the roadmaps to success and also honors recognition. Assemblies were held. So we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges. The challenges, of course, always occur, as I mentioned, when you blend people. So we were blending at Arlington current Tinley students, those that chose to come, but we also did an outreach to other students who might not have chosen Arlington, but we wanted you all to come back. We wanted everyone to come back to Arlington, this amazing high school. So there are always challenges when you have a blended family. We consider schools to be families. And so we've listed on this slide some of the challenges. One challenge, of course, is staffing. Staffing is traditionally a challenge in urban districts. IPS is no different, but we want to find the right staff for Arlington. We want people who want to be in a building where we're bringing a family together, we're starting from the ground up and building a solid foundation. So staffing initially was a challenge. With student schedules, the challenges occurred because students were, again, coming from different places. If they were at Tinley and they chose to come back or to stay at Arlington, those schedules were easy for us because we planned that in the spring. We sat one-on-one with the students and completed their schedules. But students who were coming from other high schools to say, hey, I want to come back to Arlington, when they got to school, we wanted to go ahead and set that schedule. So initially we had to, at the beginning of the year, create student schedules for them. The climate is important in a school, and when you're blending the family, sometimes there's a rocky road at the very beginning as everyone comes together, so climate initially was a challenge. And that is next to that honeycomb that talks about relationship building, because once you build the relationships, the staff members get to know each other, build that family, the students get to know each other, the climate naturally gets better. And so we were working on building relationships with students and staff. And the bottom is instruction and operation. Instruction, we need the teachers who've chosen to be at Arlington who are new to IPS to understand our expectations for excellent instruction. And so, of course, at the very beginning of a startup, there are some transition times. And then the operations, managing such a large building. Arlington is a massive high school. It currently holds about 600. So how do you design that building and use that building with 600 kids and it can hold 2,000? The next slide just lists out for us the 4 buckets of support that we've provided to Arlington. They're part of the transformation zone modeled after the work in Evansville with an academic improvement officer. We refer to them as an AIO. There's a director just for the transformation zone and academic coaches. We provide additional positions in the form of deans and behavioral intervention specialists to help us to build a climate that's conducive for learning. The wonderful partnership we have with Mass Insight. Mass Insight provides a wealth of knowledge and experience, and so they've agreed to partner with Arlington. And then we mentioned the community. So the alumni, we mentioned the president who's here, they volunteer, they provide donations, they provide mentoring to students, they provide hall monitors, and any assistance that's needed. And also the NAACP. The Indianapolis NAACP has partnered with Arlington for their success. The current conditions, and we're just giving you a snapshot of October and November. In October, the focus was around positive behavior intervention supports. As a school, Arlington has chosen PBIS as their support model. And we provided professional development around positive behavior intervention and supports, and also professional development around teaching and learning. So how best to teach and how can you set up the learning environment so the students at Arlington can be successful. On October 19th, which was the Monday following fall break, we had a district-wide professional development day, and Mr. Law and the team provided professional developments to the professional development to the teachers, so that when the students came on October the 20th, it was a brand new day. So there had been a quarter of school going on, and they were able to understand students, understand their needs, start to meld families. So let's get together as a staff on the 19th to have professional development, have conversations about students so that we're ready and make adjustments as needed when students returned on that Tuesday after fall break. In November, class locations were adjusted to cluster the middle grades a little bit better together. Grade level assemblies started, and they occur monthly. So the students get together by grade level. They get an opportunity to build relationships with each other, but also to have conversations with the principal, because that's led by Mr. Law. In November, there was an increased accountability. There were conversations consistently around that for students and staff. So this is how things are done at Arlington. These are our expectations, and these are the goals that we've set. And so the increase of accountability was consistent throughout the month of November and continued throughout the year. So the next steps, just to show this same roadmap, kind of like the trajectory showed in the transition slides, we're going to continue to implement and monitor positive behavior intervention and supports, PBIS, continue to provide the professional development that's needed. And we consider it real-time professional development. We don't like to, and we don't wait until there's a lengthy time or there are massive formative or summative assessments, but the professional development is real-time, and it's also very supportive of teachers. So when we see a need, professional development is provided, whether it's whole school, within a grade level, or even within a subject area. So we'll provide professional development. We decided that we wanted to intensify our support for new teachers. We have a person in the district dedicated to supporting new teachers. They all have mentors, but at Arlington, we wanted to intensify that support because there are several new teachers who said, I'm excited about the change. I've heard a lot about this new school, the school coming back to the district. I want to be a part of it. But as a new teacher, you already have things that are challenges. And so a new teacher with those challenges coupled with a brand new building that's coming together, we knew we wanted to provide additional support to them. And finally, you see that there are classroom walkthroughs and building walkthroughs. The superintendent and I also walked through the building along with Mr. Law and his team, the academic improvement officer, the instructional coaches walked through. And then finally, you'll see in the last box an emphasis on instruction. That is the key. So we want a wonderful learning environment. We want students to learn because I've shared before our end goal. We want our students to graduate from this high school employed, enlisted, or enrolled. We want them to be successful after they leave. So not just to leave us, but to have a successful future once they leave. That can't happen without an emphasis on instruction. So that's the end of our presentation, and the three of us are happy to entertain any questions that you have.
Questions from the board? Yes, David?
Good morning. Thanks for being here. And you mentioned some of the challenges, and obviously in a turnaround school, it's pretty important to change the culture, as we've talked about many times. And you listed some of the challenges, and I guess my questions are going to be a little more specific. What specific challenges, and maybe this is a question for the principal, are you facing, number one? And number two, how are they being addressed? And number three, what's your progress so far?
First off, good morning to everyone. Some of the specific challenges that we have at Arlington, that we're addressing at Arlington. Let's start with staffing, for example. Well, before we even start with staffing, let's start with climate and culture. That's very important for everything else to fall in line. Specifically with climate, we were 7 through 12. We didn't know, none of the staff knew any of the kids there. The kids didn't know us there. And so it's very important for us to be able to establish quality relationships with the students by getting to know them. That takes time. Some of our kids come, a lot of our kids come with a lot of challenges, social, emotional, academic challenges, etc. Some of them have not had successes over the years. With regards to an academic environment, being placed in the right academic environment. So we have to get to know who these kids are and how best to serve them. So that has been and still is an ongoing process. With regards to teaching, Arlington is has a very challenging demographic population. So as mentioned in the presentation, we want teachers there and staff members also there who want to work with such a population. And there are people. We have some great teachers there, some dedicated, committed teachers there. Some came with me from a prior school. But we still have a ways to go with getting the right people on the bus, so to speak, as well as filling some of the vacancies that we have at the school. I think we're somewhere, ballpark figure, 7, 8, 9 vacancies that we still have to fill in certain areas, math, science, etc. And so those are two of our major climate challenges that we have.
How would you characterize the progress so far that's been made? And I guess maybe we could use a 100-point scale. 100 points is you're there, and we're off and running, and kids are being
100.
served. And I understand. I'm just trying to give you some barometer to share with us. Are we at the lower end of that? What kind of number would you place on progress so far?
It's been the tale of two cities at Arlington. We separate the last month from the rest of the weeks. So in answer to your question, I would say we've done nearly, with the climate, when I'm just talking about the climate, not teaching and learning, but with the climate, it's nearly a 100% turnaround from what we experienced the first several weeks of school in terms of getting kids in. I mean, they were rolling in at the beginning of school. I think first day one we had maybe 150 students, and over the next several weeks we end up with finally 600 plus kids. So it was a constant kids coming and going, parents coming and going, et cetera. So, and then there was a lot of hallway challenges, for example. Kids, for whatever reason, in a 385,000 square foot building with 600 kids, and they're designed for 2,500. They had some places to go. We wore our pairs of shoes trying to catch them. And so we reconfigured the building, and they just just changed the culture almost instantly like that, the climate almost instantly just like that. So with regards to that, major.
Let me be more specific.
Sure.
And my first question was the overall conceptual part. Now I'm going to hone in on student behavior.
Sure.
And ask you the same question, 1 to 100. Where do you think we are with student behavior? Again, 100 being ideal, 1 being we're kind of in a mess right now. So specifically student behavior, how would you assess that?
Again, the tale of two cities, separate for the last month versus first 13 weeks or so. We're about 70% there. We have
70?
70. We have, out of the 600 kids, we have about 120 kids who are what I would call our frequent flyers, whom they require a whole lot of supports, interventions, parent conferencing, social worker, Gallahue, counseling services, etc. So we're constantly working with those kids. So I would say, again, being the tale of two cities, we're about 70% the way there. The biggest problem, however, with student behavior, now that we've isolated what was going on in the hallway, so to speak, we couldn't tell whether it was an instructional issue or overall climate issue. We've isolated that. The focus now, as the slide said, it's the instructional piece. And we have a lot of academic kids with academic challenges that we have to serve the need for. So,
okay. Dr. Farabee, could I ask you a question? I was really pleased when you talked about your relationship at Emma Donna School and how well that's been going. We got off to, I think, a little shaky start, to say the least. And so I really appreciate your work with Charter USA, and I feel that Emma Donna is really moving forward in a very positive way, so thank you for that. And thinking about Arlington, I guess my question is, because Emma Donna has worked out so well in that case, and Arlington is still at the initial stages and maybe struggling a little at this point, in my opinion, do you think that we need to look at maybe a different relationship at Arlington, similar to what we've done at Emma Donna?
So with Emma Donna, that specific relationship is more so around the elementary age students and creating a feeder for the middle and high school stream for that school community. I see this challenge a little bit different in terms of, we've got a high school setting that's had dramatic change over the last 2 to 3 years, and we're now at a point where we need to bring structure and order. We also, I would remind board members, superintendent, that the student population had dwindled less than 300 students. So we've doubled the student population, and many of the students currently attending Arlington now didn't attend that school and attended other schools. And so we really have the making of a new school. And I think, we have to echo the comments from the principal about the time it takes to build those relationships to ensure that that's a successful school. What I think we can begin to explore is how do we create the strong relationships in a K-12 feeder pattern to ensure that we have a successful stream, because we now have students coming up from elementary schools that will be feeding into Arlington. And I think that is something we need to think about, how we could replicate some of the success that we've seen at Madonna. And I think Mr. Law's been very modest, because he's been very, very open and transparent with this transition. He's even allowed to have, media presence in the building on a daily basis to tell the story about the transition. And, I don't know if I would have done that, given some of the challenges that, he was up against. But I've been in the building on several occasions, and I'm extremely pleased with the improvement of the learning environment. I would echo the comments from Mr. Law that climate has dramatically improved. Students have gotten the opportunity to know the staff. The staff has gotten to know the students. What we now have to focus on is what happens when the students are in the classroom for instruction. Hallways, cafeteria, those types of things improve significantly. But again, we now have to get at the core business of teaching and learning, and that will be our work between now and the end of the school year.
I just want to be sure as a board that we continue to advocate for every child in Indiana. And I'm concerned about Arlington. I'm concerned about the children in Arlington, that we're ramping up our abilities as fast as we can. And I guess maybe I'm a little spoiled by Emma Donna and the good work that's been done there. Maybe I'm expecting the same kind of dynamics. And it's my understanding we still retain control of Arlington. And so I feel almost a personal responsibility to be sure that that is continuing to move forward. So I thank you for the update, and would hope that we would have more updates in a more periodic way. And I turn to John or Ashley. When is the next update for Arlington? Is it quarterly or? Okay, so I would hope that we would receive more frequent updates, particularly on Arlington, so that we can keep track of what's going on there. So thank you for being here today, and I appreciate your candid comments.
Vince?
Dr. Farabee, and again, to each of you, thank you for being here, and thank you for your efforts. When I think about education or K-12, establishing, maintaining high expectation for all students while implementing a single accountability system that reflects the diversity of our students in our schools. I'm interested in your time in Indiana so far, the rules, policies, regulations that you have found that are getting in the way of you meeting the needs of your children.
How much time do we have?
As much time as you need. So
I will, real quickly, I am very optimistically enthusiastic about the conversation that we're having around how we look at multiple measures of success for our students. I'm also very excited that nationally, the U.S. is beginning to have some hard conversations around testing and accountability. And so it's my hope that we begin to massage how we do that work in our school systems. I firmly believe we can have brevity and testing and still hold our staff and students accountable for the work that they need to do. And I'm hopeful that we'll find some solutions, and I appreciate, board member made a great comment today about, uplifting our staff and ensuring that we recognize their work during these trying times that we're having with testing and accountability. That's at the forefront of my mind right now. In terms of other regulations and policies, I think what I would encourage state leadership to consider is what we've implemented in our district is push as many decisions to the individuals that touch the students. And so in our district, we're giving our principals as much leverage as possible because we believe they have the context about their students and their families to make sound decisions to support those students and families accordingly. And I think our state has the same obligation to provide school districts with as many decision points. You know, we appreciate the ability to have flexibility around formative assessment. This was the first year that we had an opportunity to make decisions about the assessments that occurred throughout the school year. Well, we gave that responsibility to our schools. Say, you decide. And so I think the more we can do that, the better we'll serve the staff that are serving our students and families.
I agree. I think it's just ironic that, you know, you look at No Child Left Behind, and I believe it was up for reauthorization in 2007. And we're just now getting to a place where we're going to reauthorize ESEA at a time where we're starting a national dialogue about assessment and testing. You know, and I just see a point here in which the conversations are not happening collaboratively. But I think to your point, and the more flexibility as a state that we can give you to drive those decisions to the school, to meet the needs of those students on a regular basis is going to be very important. And so I appreciate your comments. Thank you, and thanks for your efforts here.
Thank you.
I'm quite interested in the partnership with the alumni. I know you brought him with you today. Might he speak just a minute to talk about the partnership with that?
Sure. Again, Mr. Bass will be very candid as well because he's at Arlington on a daily basis. But yeah, I'm proud to have him come up. Mr. Bass, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Most folks think that Mr. Law and I are brothers. So when the students see me, they think that.
Look out, huh?
They run.
That helps you.
But thank you for this opportunity. Listening to your concerns, talking about Arlington.
Sure.
I share with Mr. Law on many occasions. When I think about Arlington, I think about a construction site. You know, when you drive past a construction site, you see dirt, you see construction equipment, dump trucks. It talks about vision. Vision is not what is what's to come. And when I think about Arlington, even though it's had some challenges, I feel good because I believe in the vision that Mr. Law has for Arlington. Soon to be done. And the partnership that we have with Arlington, we're about 300 strong. You know, many of us have walked the halls at Arlington. And yes, it was rocky at first, but when you go up there today, there's no students in the hallway. They're in the classroom. And what I feel good about what we've done, one of the words that stick in my mind, what Dr. Grant said, is relationship, is building relationships with these students. Mr. Law he texted me early this morning about one of our students who was hit by a vehicle last night, and she's at Methodist Hospital this morning. I went past at 5:30 this morning to visit her because she's more than just a student. She's my baby. I care about her just like I do all 600 students at Arlington. And we may not be there right now, but we're going to get there. I believe that in my heart, that Arlington, it began in 1961 and it has a great history. I came out in 1982, and there are good things, good people that come out of Arlington. They just need a chance. They just need an opportunity. And when I look at these students' faces, when I'm up there at Arlington, that's all they're looking for, is somebody that care about them. I've been to every football game almost. I've been to every volleyball game. I've been to the girls and boys basketball game. Whether it's Mr. Law and I just in the stands by ourselves, we're cheering these kids on, letting them know that we care about them, that we got your back. And I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere because this is my passion. Those students at Arlington are like my own children. And I care about them. There are nights I toss and turn just trying to figure out what we can do to help Arlington. The football team, we've fed the football team all 9 games. I've spent my own money on the volleyball team, buying kids plaques, making them try the self-worth, making them feel like they've done something, you know, to accomplish something in their sport. And like I said, we're not there yet, but trust me, today is December the 2nd, we're gonna get there. And Arlington is gonna be one of those schools here in the near future. It's gonna be like one of those Park Tutors and Brebeuf. My kids went to North Central, graduated from North Central. And I believe that Arlington has the same potential to be like a North Central. So thank you, Dr. Ritz, for this opportunity. Thank you guys for allowing us to be here.
I want to thank you personally because not all schools have an alumni group that actually gets involved with what's happening in the actual high school. So I think it's very important for students to see that and get a sense of feel for their high school. So thank you very much for having come. Yeah, Byron?
I want to applaud you as well because having been at Manual and knowing the Alumni Association that we had there and the embracing that CSUSA encouraged us to do with the alumni, that was incredible, and I consider them one of the top 3 reasons why that school has turned around. And so I would encourage you to stay involved. I know you're going to, I don't even need to tell you that, right? But I like the fact that you're here giving a report, and I guess I would encourage that forever because I'm totally confident when I hear that, because I know how those alumni watch you like hawks and want to be involved, as they should, because it's their school, right? So I want to applaud you on that, and please, please, please continue to stay involved in that and be a part of that reporting process even.
Thank you very much. Oh, Leanne?
Question. This is for Mr. Law. So you mentioned staffing as being an issue, and I know in urban schools, staffing is an issue, and every year it gets tougher, so
Yes.
I recognize that. You mentioned you have between 6 or 8 openings right now. Are those in some of your core content areas?
Some of them are in the core content areas. For example, I have a math opening, just hired one, and I have another one still open. I have a biology one, recently created biology. One teacher resigned, moved on, and that created an opening. I have 2 special education openings that are available, so yes.
And I know that there are different groups like TFA that partner and work with IPS. Are you having success with some of your partnerships to be able to get teachers in the classrooms?
No.
No.
No, I do have a fleet of ITF teachers, but that's a challenge. That group's a challenge. I don't have any TFAs. We'll have an opportunity to interview more. December 5th, there's a job teacher fair. There you go. There's a teacher fair, December 5th. So I'll have an opportunity to interview for those positions then.
So are you tracking like how many teachers you started with and what the attrition rate is of teachers coming and going throughout this year?
Yes, I am tracking because it is, again, that's a challenge.
So do you have like percentage, do you know what some of that is right now for you? I know it has to be a challenge.
It is a challenge, and I can run them down to you. I've had 3 math teachers leave for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they tell me something, and then they move on. For whatever reason, they move on. I'm currently in a situation now with my ITF teachers where they've elected or been allowed, I should say, to move on to greener pastures, so to speak. So that creates, again, some hiring challenges. But the way I see it, in the end, this is, in terms of the construction analogy, I just believe that there are people who are coming along, like my recent hiree, who wants to work with a challenging population and believe that those kids deserve, and they're going to stay committed to make sure that they get the best out of the adults whom we put them in front of. So it may not happen. Some people, it's not for them. This is not. They move on, but people will come. They'll come.
I'm glad to hear you have a strong new teacher mentoring program
Absolutely.
to help with that as well.
Thank you.
One thing I want to add to what Mr. Law mentioned, as you mentioned, that hiring and teaching and staffing is difficult in urban schools. And so for IPS, what we've dedicated this year is a person as a talent officer. Her sole responsibility is staffing. Her sole responsibility is to find the staff members across the country. We know there's a shortage in the state of Indiana as well, and also nationally. And so her job is to find teachers who want to and are equipped to teach in IPS. And the teacher recruitment fair, which is on this coming Friday, is targeted at December graduates. We know how many are graduating around us. We've made contact and we've invited the graduates to come visit us on December the 5th at Tech High School. We want to find the best qualified teachers across the country to come to IPS, and that's so important to us that we have a talent officer. That talent officer knows that her priority is to deal initially with all of our schools, of course, but the focus is on our priority schools. We have our IPS priority schools and also our transformation zone schools. So you have to create a plan to meet the needs, and so all vacancies focusing in on our priority schools and our transformation zone schools.
Yes, BJ?
If I could, with having lived through this in Evansville, I can't agree more with you that getting the right people in place is the #1 ingredient to making this thing successful. And it's not a knock on those teachers that wanted to leave. Like you said, this job's not for everyone, and they're not bad teachers or good teachers. I mean, it's a tough situation, and if you don't want to be there, it's not good for anyone. So I applaud you for making sure you get the right people in place, because once that's done, things start to really turn around quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Vince?
Mr. Law, and I appreciate your comments, and I think this whole issue around recruiting and retaining great teachers, obviously it's something the superintendent's put together, the Blue Ribbon Panel to address. And I agree, finding people who are passionate about working with certain populations is absolutely critical, but I don't think it is sustainable. I don't think it's a scalable strategy, to think we can just get people with good intentions to come into this profession. There are too many other choices, too many options for people and in this job market. So my question, though, is really around what are those incentives, those deep incentives that we could use to attract people to IPS and to Indiana? And I think there needs to be some structural changes around this. So any ideas or thoughts and things that we could possibly help with?
So we have received tremendous support from the state and our legislators for our opportunity culture model that we're implementing, which elevates teacher leadership in a way that our most talented teachers get an opportunity to touch more students and also receive greater compensation. And so that's one of our strategies for our transformation zone. Teachers can earn up to $18,000 more, but they also get an opportunity to touch more students and be accountable for additional students and possibly staff. I think that our most sustainable strategy is to build on the expertise that we have to develop the next great slew of teachers who can be in our most challenging situations and be successful.
So what is the teacher demand for those positions in transformation zones given the increased compensation?
We get ready to find out. So we are marketing those positions right now. As stated earlier, we have a recruitment fair that will take place this weekend. We are continuing to ensure that we have as many opportunities for teacher leadership across our district, and also in a time where IPS has received significantly less funding. We're down double-digit $1 million in funding. We're investing over $20 million in compensation for our employees. And so I think coupled with the professional development and leadership opportunities and the compensation, it puts us in a good position. But we also need to continue our partnerships with our higher ed institutions. We have partnerships with Marion University. We have partnerships with University of Indianapolis, IUPUI. We're reaching out now to Ball State, some other universities across the state to ensure that we have an opportunity to build a strong pipeline of teachers who can particularly go in our urban settings and be successful. And we've also have been focused on, and this is one of our partnerships with Marion University, is paraprofessionals or hourly employees that are currently in our district who know how to build relationships with students. We're giving them opportunity to go back and earn their credentials to become teachers. So again, it's another opportunity to capitalize on the talent that we have in our organization already.
So those positions in the transformation zone that you're marketing right now are open to teachers from anywhere, is that
Anywhere.
correct? So it'd be interesting, I would like to see data after, as you go through that process. I'd like to see what that teacher demand is, given those structural changes. And then it'd be interesting to look at retention of those teachers over 2, 3, 4 year periods. You know, we get to keep them as a result of that. So that'd be great for us to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eddie, I think you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for the feedback. Trying to jumping in and having a slight delay, but I definitely wanted to commend everyone. Thank you for the presentation and sharing the progress. I want to acknowledge the comment that was mentioned earlier about the vision. It's definitely important to have that vision. I see that you all have that vision and leadership in place. A couple of questions, and I think a lot of the things that you touched on will help other districts that's currently going through the same process across the state. And I was very interested and wanted to learn a little bit more about, from a climate and culture standpoint, it was mentioned earlier about the reconfiguration of the building. Can you share a little bit more about the reconfiguration of that building and how that directly impacts the climate and culture?
Sure. When we initially sat down and mapped out how we would group kids, Arlington has 3 floors, very huge building, 3 floors, and in those floors there are like 3 or 4 hallways. So we tried to build communities of like 7th graders all in one area, 8th grade in one area, then 9, 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11 in one area, and then the 12th graders had their own area. And so we found ourselves sort of spread out, and they were moving, you know, the high school, for example, sometimes they had classes on all 3 floors, where when we got to looking at, just kind of looking at it and seeing a lot of the student movement and how long it's taking kids to traverse from one end of the building to the next end and one floor to the next floor, it was a lot of movement that we noticed. And so we sat down with the staff and some representatives from the Transformation Zone and sort of just rethought how can we reconfigure the building where we reduce a lot of the transition time and the space in which kids have to move and classes are from one another. As a result of that, we pretty much we reduced it to 2 floors, and so that we're only on the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor, and then everything is pretty much in what we call a T zone. Most of the classrooms, so when students leave out of one classroom, they probably have to walk maybe 75, 80 feet on average to the next class, with the exception of having to go to the gym, which is in a separate part of the building. And that has helped really, really, really reduce a lot of the behaviors in the hallways, tardies, et cetera. So that was a result.
Did you have another question, Eddie?
Just a follow-up question around, earlier it was mentioned about a select few, about 120 that you frequently have to work with from a behavioral standpoint. When we talk about the collaboration. And again, I want to commend the Alumni Association with their engagement. That building that community environment, I feel, is very important. The question I would ask in terms of what type of additional or external support from community are you receiving regarding social services or things that may help students address some of those social issues that they may be experiencing outside of the school atmosphere?
So you're talking about wraparound services?
Yes, we actually have had a lot of interest from several different groups, be it churches, community service organizations that have wanted to come in and help. And I should say we have partnered with some of them. So, for example, we have Peace Learning. We just partnered with the Peace Learning Center. Peace Learning Center is going to provide us with two different programs: a peer mediation program where students help students solve their own issues in a constructive setting with a trained adult. They'll bring a restorative justice, which is going to help us reduce having to suspend kids out of school and have alternative measures for solving issues, as well as we have an in-class. They'll provide an in-class mentoring to the teachers in terms of how to handle some of those acute issues that occur in the classroom that doesn't necessarily require the student to have to be removed from the academic setting, but some tricks in your tool, or I should say some tools in your toolbox that will help you to sort of correct those issues right then and there and carry on with instruction. We've also partnered with the Forest Manor Multi-Service Center. They have a plethora of services in which they provide to the community that they've also vowed to share with Arlington. Of course, we're the Gallahue Mental Health Services, and several of our kids are being seen with them. We have, with our Alumni Association, for example, they've committed more so on an individual level to just mentor certain kids, connect with those kids and the families as well. We have several churches on board: Eastern Star, specific service on Eastern Star, Emmanuel Baptist Church, Living Water Fellowship Church, etc., that provide an array of services as well. And there are others, I'm just pulling from the top of my head, but there are others, and we've had a great pouring out to help in that regard. In the end, I mean, the families and the kids, in order for them to be successful at school, we have to meet an array of the needs, from social, psychological, physiological, etc. So we're constantly looking for ways in where we can provide for ourselves to partner with people in the community that will help us with that.
And I have one last question. So are you also, by chance, dealing with the challenge of mobility of students? A lot of kids coming in and out?
A lot of kids coming in and out
Okay.
every day. That the mobility, it is a problem, but
Okay.
it's hard to control that. And that's, of course, that's more of a social issue that occurs in social economic issue, I should say.
So to follow up on that a little bit, and then Eddie has another question. Is there a policy within your district that students can stay at the school with transportation provided if they move somewhere else in the area of another school? I was just wondering about your mobility policies, perchance, Dr. Farabee.
So one of our strategies in our strategic plan that we recently launched is to study mobility strategies across the district. We've studied mobility, and that is a major challenge for our district as a whole. We see several schools that have, tremendous mobility. You would have, for example, an elementary school that would start with, 100 kindergartners, and by the time those students should be in 5th or 6th grade, they're all in other schools. And so we're trying to brainstorm, and we'll have a project team that will get into specifics on what we can do, whether it's transportation, whether it's housing, there's partnerships with our city to ensure that we are able to, secure more stable housing for our families. We have a partnership on the Near East Side with our Promise neighborhood, where we're establishing a residential area where families can live in that particular area where they go to school, and they don't have to move, they can stay there. And so we're trying to create options where families don't have to move rental to rental or from living with this family member to that family member. So we can get at some of those challenges and also explore some alternatives with transportation. We hope to address the issue of mobility.
So having worked in Washington Township my whole time and the mobility of the students, you know, increasing over the years to a pretty large number, I'd urge you to talk with Nikki Woodson a little bit about what we've done in Washington Township, but the mobility factor was so intense that we literally had to make sure that for our math instruction, that we were on the same schedule with math instruction the whole time in every single school, because kids literally would have holes in their learning processes. If teacher over in this school taught geometry earlier in the year, and then the students move, and then they might not even get geometry within the elementary curriculum. So it has a mobility is one of the greatest challenges, I feel, because it's a system issue that presents itself to the school system as a whole, and how you ensure kids who have continued instruction and make sure that that works in a fashion. The same thing was occurring in some of our science work at our elementary level, where, you know, they have to have certain curricular pieces in place, but the student mobility factor was so intense that students would miss units of instruction. So I applaud you for it's. I just consider it one of the major issues, you know, that schools are having to work with more poverty in our state, to figure out systematically within the system what we can do with mobility. Eddie, you had one last question?
Yeah, just one of the other accomplishments that I took note of earlier was mentioned that attendance in school had population dropped over time. It was around 300 or so, and now you're up to 600. So I was just curious what process did you put in place to rise to that number? Because you also mentioned there were some new students that didn't attend. So I was just curious on what was done around that recruitment piece or that promotional piece in public.
So we started last spring on hosting activities and reaching out to families about the Arlington opportunity. And so part of our strategy was to ensure as many students that were living in that neighborhood knew that they were welcome to Arlington. And many of those students exercised the option to return back to their neighborhood school, which is great, because we know the research on, you know, students having access to a school nearby and not having to travel out. We've also have had you know, the benefit of word of mouth, that the students have been able to have some positive experiences and then been able to invite other students in. And I think the resurgence of athletics at Arlington and the extracurriculars at Arlington, all those things that make a high school great.
Your time's up.
My time's up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farabee.
Better closing, huh?
I assume that we're going to need to
Evacuate.
evacuate and resume.
So we know exactly.